Thursday, already April 3rd. Brendan, hard to believe. You got coffee. I don't. Mildred, but
You guys are
lots.
just glad to have lights this morning,
I
aren't you?
know. Brendan, and I'm not, look, we talk every day, so I know Ocala, there are days when you have 3 or 4 roofs caving in, tornadoes, hurricanes, tropical storms. We get between Memphis and Little Rock. Y'all all seen the show Highway Through Hell up in Canada, that road. Little Rock to Memphis gets some of the craziest weather, and then you get snow and ice, sleet, freezing rain. We had here in Parkin, Arkansas, right outside of Memphis, 3 tornado warnings last night, 2 of them at the same time. That was crazy, and there were 6 that hit the ground in this area. Rough night. Prayers for everybody to make a full recovery, and we'll find out what we can do to get the word out to help these people. That was a 5-on-5 alert yesterday, so a lot happening. Glad to be here. Got the power. A lot of Memphis, a lot of this area does not. We've got Matt Dean, the coach, going to join us. John Hartwell trying to get through with us. Gary Harris from Tuscaloosa checks in about half past the hour. And take a picture of the QR code. Brendan's right. It's critically important. Take a picture with your phone. Lock us in. Subscribe. We're on YouTube as well. Bottom line, 7 channels. We broadcast. We stream live on also Facebook. So share it with your friends. Tell your neighbors about it. We are your source for the SEC. And look, tell me when, and we're ready to roll with that story. We're going to talk a lot of Final Four today.
We'll bring our guest Matt, because I want to get his take on the whole thing, because you know he did coach once in a while. He
exactly
knows what he's talking about.
26 years worth. So it's going to be fun to get your take on it. And you know, I said we're going to look in the crystal ball, and what do we see? SEC. But there are 2 SEC, 1 ACC, and then 1 team from the Big 12. And they've been the best conference the last few years. Matt, the table's been set in San Antonio at the Alamo Dome. It's going to be a lot of fun, and kind of break it down for us right now, what you think will happen or might happen.
Good morning, guys. Rob, as you know, prayers out. There was a lot of stuff going on in your neck of the woods and my neck of the woods last night, but now we're just down to rain for the next 48 hours, it looks like. So that being said, what a tremendous weekend last weekend for the SEC, 2 in the Final Four. You're going to have 1 in the national title game regardless, obviously. You know, Auburn and Florida know each other really well. I'm still probably leaning towards Florida. Not just in the semis. I think the whole thing. That's kind of my opinion. I think they have the blessed. You know, everyone wants to talk about Cooper Flagg, and he's a tremendous player. I agree with you. Duke's on a roll. They probably had, if you look at it, the easiest path to get there, except for Bama, and they just kind of really manhandled Bama. But I just think Florida has everything inside out. I think they can handle Duke's intensity defensively. I think Walter Clayton's a really tough guard. But the first guard, let's talk about Auburn. I have not been on the last couple of days. What are you guys hearing about Johni Broome? What is he out for sure, or what's the deal?
No, he's going to play.
Okay.
He'll play.
Well, that makes a huge difference for one. Yeah. That being said, I still like Florida in the close game, but it would not shock me. Bruce Pearl is a big-time coach. Coaching matters. And I really think that Auburn the thing that's hard about three-point shooting teams, okay, these backgrounds, we've talked about it, the Alamo Dome, San Antonio. Yeah. A lot of times in these venues, if you're not making shots, you have to have a release inside. And I think both teams have the ability to either put the ball on the floor or throw it inside. But I'll tell you a team that's been under our radar the whole year. I think Houston, with it being in San Antonio, there's going to be a lot of Houston Cougars there. To me, the Houston-Duke matchup is really intriguing because I remember Franz talking about Houston's lack of maybe size inside and compared to some of these teams, but you can't question their toughness, and you can't question as a team they're over 40% from three. So those are two things that usually this time of year kind of work well together. So I'm looking for a Florida-Houston final. That's what I'm seeing, guys. And in that game, I'm probably sticking with the Gators, to be honest with you. I mean, we could throw any data you want out right now, guys. It's just about who makes shots and who catches breaks.
Well, when March 16th, when Kevin launched his podcast on this channel, he asked all of us on the spot, give me your Final Four. I hadn't even looked at the brackets yet. And I had Michigan State, Florida, Houston, and Alabama. Florida plays Houston. Florida cuts down the nets. And I based that no different than the market trends. I mean, 5 big guys that can play, that can run up and down the court. There's no wasted space out there among their bigs. And this, Walter Clayton Jr., just call it, who would you rather have, Walter Clayton Jr. or Mark Sears? Both first-team All-Americans. I think it's pretty obvious, Walter Clayton Jr., because he does more. He does more when he doesn't have the ball in his hands. That's the difference. That's why. And then you look at Houston. They are a lot like a football team on the basketball court, and they consistently shoot in that 40% range on three-pointers, and they play their ass off on defense. They're physical, and Kelvin Sampson, he's won everywhere he's ever been. Look at the trend. Todd Golden, a lot younger, he won at San Francisco. That's why he got the Florida job.
Yeah.
He's winning. I mean, year 3 at Florida. Think about it. Year 3. So I got him in the Final Four. How long did it take those other coaches? Well, John Shire, year 3. In the Final Four. Okay. You've got, and it took Pearl a long time to get to the Final Four. But he wasn't at a Duke, And Florida has won back-to-back national championships. They're the only team to do that since UConn just did it, last 2 years. So I don't know. I'm sticking with that Florida pick. Now, hey, call it like I see it. Broome will play. You're not going to keep anybody off the court at this stage.
Well, and I didn't want to interrupt, Brent, if you were going to say something, but thinking about everything you just said, the thing that's really unique about Houston this year is, for the first time in a while, 2 things related to their tournament run. They're healthy. Okay. In the past, they've been banged up. And secondly, they have more offense. Emmanuel Sharp, LJ Cryer, and then also Milos Uzan all played really well offensively for them. And we don't question their offensive rebounding. Their offensive rebounding, I think the most intriguing matchup of the tournament is going to be them and Duke. I really do. Because I think they will get in. They're going to make Cooper Flagg put the ball on the floor, and they're going to provide help, and they're going to schematically be as sound as anyone they've seen in this tournament. Okay. The difference is, on the other side of the bracket, you got 2 teams that know each other really well. And you talk about Coach Pearl, Rob, his path was kind of derailed. People forget when he was an assistant for Dr. Tom at Iowa, the recruiting incident that kind of, when he taped the conversation, I believe it was with Deion Thomas from the University of Illinois.
Yeah, Illinois
he kind of got blackballed a little bit, right? And he had to take a different path. He ended up going to South Indiana. I believe it was Milwaukee before Tennessee. I can't remember.
It was.
But even at Tennessee, all the momentum there. And we have that other situation that came down. And what he's done at Auburn, just credit and kudos to Coach. And he's just a tremendous ball coach. And right now, if you look at the stories that are in there, I mean, obviously Schreier's done a tremendous job, Schreier, in the first 3 years, as is Todd Golden. But Pearl and Sampson, if it was an Auburn-Houston final, what an incredible story about those 2 journeys it would be. Because Kelvin Sampson has faced his share of adversity too, guys.
Oh, God. I mean, he got in trouble for texting when he was coaching recruits and all. I mean, some of the stuff that we look back now, it's
right.
It's child's play compared to. And, the thing about Golden, he played under Pearl. He played for Pearl in the Maccabi games, which are a big deal in Israel, and it's a worldwide competition. Todd's only 39. And what I think stands out about him is I like his atmosphere. Yeah. You come over there to him, it's like my wife, Mildred, calm. He's going to keep you calm. And Buddy has talked so much on this show, on his show and this show, about a guy he really likes who's underrated for the Gators, Denzel Aberdeen. Yeah. Buddy just finds these guys, and he was on our AU Undercover show on this channel yesterday. It was a lot of fun with Doug Dean and me and Ronnie Sanders. But Elijah Martin, He didn't play in the Auburn game February 8th. Florida hit like 14 3-pointers in that game.
Yeah.
Matt, from a coaching standpoint, and Brendan and I both want to know this, you can't it's feast or famine with the threes. You get into a groove. Alabama likes to take a shot within 10 seconds on the transition. Break down Florida's offense, defense compared to Auburn, and same thing for Duke and Houston, if you can. I know you can.
Well, so the first thing I want to talk about Florida is the path to get here. Let's look at the UConn win, and let's look at the most recent Texas Tech win.
Yeah.
They were challenged late in both of those basketball games, okay?
Yep.
So at some point, their opposition had guarded them pretty well, or they'd missed shots. However you want to lay it out, they had to make plays down the stretch.
Yeah.
And Florida has, I think, the most complete roster left. They have size, they have athleticism, they have great guard play. And the more I watched Walter Clayton Jr., guys, I think on Monday in the show, I compared him to a young Dame Lillard, who's he's one of my favorite players to watch in the NBA besides my guy, Michael Jordan. I just think they got someone who's not afraid in the moment to hit big shots. I could sit here and break down offenses for you and that type of thing, but when it comes to these games, I remember when Michael was a freshman in 82, 83. I think it was in the New Orleans when they beat Georgetown. The shot he hit, he took as a freshman. The shots that Walter Clayton Jr. has hit in those two games, in particular, I know we're going to look back at the Texas Tech game, but, dude, there was a couple huge shots he hit in the last 4 minutes against UConn, if I'm not mistaken, Brendan. And I just think that's not coaching. That is just having someone playing at an incredibly high level. And the thing about him, it's not like you can get in his grill. He can go by you, okay? Pressure doesn't bother Florida. I look at Duke's path on the other side, and maybe it's because they're the best team in the country. I didn't pick them. I picked them to beat Bama. I picked them to be here, but I didn't think they would win the whole thing because I thought at the end of the day, the other teams had a deeper roster, and I really feel that way. But obviously, Cooper Flagg is a special generational talent. Yeah. People think he's going to be the number 1 overall pick. So you don't just get that for no reason. It's because he's really, really good basketball player. He can handle, he can put it on the floor, he can shoot perimeter shots, right? He's 6'11", he's long, and he's battle-tested now. He's gone through an NCAA tournament. He went through a conference season. And for me, I'm just really intrigued about the Houston matchup because what they're going to do is they're going to get out to the perimeter, and they're going to force you to put the ball on the floor. And if you watch that Tennessee game, how many times they doubled the ball screen? And that's where I think teams sometimes – the one thing that Florida's got going for them, they don't need a ball screen. Walter Clayton Jr. doesn't need a ball screen to get open. They're going to beat you in transition. They're not afraid to take open shots in transition. That's how they play. And here's another thing. They can rebound the ball with anyone. That's why the Florida-Houston matchup, if it happens, they're not afraid to go on the glass against Houston because they have the length, the athleticism, and size to do it. So if you look at the breakdown, I think the pace of play in Auburn, Florida is just fun to watch for fans. I think it's an incredible game to watch for fans. Like I said last time I played, take the over. But when I look at these games, when I get to the semis of any Final Four or pod or whatever, I'm looking for difference makers. I just think Florida has more.
Yeah, well, and just to dovetail what you're saying, Matt, I just think that Florida just seems so battle tested, right? If you look at the intangibles this year, some of the storylines, we talked about this early on. Does this, did the Todd Golden sort of thing at the beginning of the year that was obviously, released and said it was not a thing, sort of emboldened this team. We talked about that early on. Yeah. And then, I think Florida's ability to flip games with like explosive runs is like sort of unmatched, right? Yeah. Like I feel like that's all year long, whether it inside the tournament for the Elite Eight against Tech, where they trailed with by 9 with 3 minutes or so left in the game.
By 10.
Yeah, by 10. No, 9 minutes, 9 points with 3:14 left in the game. They go on an 18-4 run, makes it 84-79. Walter Clayton Jr. Drops 30 points, including a clutch 3-pointer.
Yeah,
I mean, he's a game changer when it matters the most. And I just think Florida's depth is a super real advantage. I think the Gators are not just relying on Walter Clayton.
You're right.
I think their front court, Condon, Howell, Handglotten, which I know is one of Rob's favorite guys.
Yeah,
I think these guys make a huge difference. They also, Florida ranks 5th in offensive rebounding in the league. So I'm just trying to outline as whenever we talk about these other teams and how good they are, I feel like Florida's got an answer for the big guys. Hey, these guys play Houston's like a football team. Okay, yeah, but Florida's got 5 bigs. 25 fouls.
And Houston doesn't have size either. They're like strength. 6'7", 6'8", but
they're strong. Yeah. And I just think that in the SEC this year was brutal. And I think if you came out of that, you're battle tested in general. I think we had 14 teams in the tournament this year. I know. And I think they're the team that handed it to Auburn earlier this year, in a very convincing way. So I don't know. I think that's a lot to be said. I think Duke's one-sided. They got raw talent with this Cooper Flag. I think Houston's defense is suffocating. I think they can hold teams like Tennessee to historic lows, but Auburn's got, obviously Broome, which it makes a difference. He's going to be healthy and a top 3-point defense. So I don't know. Florida's not perfect. They've had their shaky moments. They nearly blew it against Tech, right? The mix of clutch play, depth, experience, all that stuff. But I think they just figure out how to win. And I just really thought about all week long. We've been talking about this, and I just keep keeping notes. And today I was like, God, look at the notes I've got from the week.
But there, Brendan, you think about it, the 3-point teams. Alabama's they had the best offense in the country, but man, if it isn't working with the threes, you go 25 of 51 Thursday night against BYU and win 113-88. And then you can't hit the side of the barn on Saturday against Duke. Duke's a better team. I mean, no question, than BYU. But what jumps out about Auburn is they can beat you with so many different styles. So you start trying to play Auburn one way, they can switch. But the critical thing for Auburn, if the guards, Miles Kelly, Denver Jones, Tahad Pettiford, those guys have to score. You got to have Chaney Johnson coming through. Those guys late in the season, some of them would disappear and show up with nothing or 2 or 4 points. The guards are going to have to contribute, no question, upwards of 60% of the points for Auburn against Florida. Denver Jones is a great defender. There are going to be so many cool matchups. But what matters is how do you match up on game day? And Matt, and Brendan, that's everything. And then it's just the mental state of your team. Don't let the moment be too big. That's why they left yesterday. They're all out there in the Alamo Dome. That's a big, cavernous, giant arena. So, your depth perception, that is critical. How do the rims look, the backboards? Matt, again, you're the coach. Tell us how you'd be handling it, because these are the 4 best teams, and each one of them has won a trophy for winning the region. It's the only event. It's kind of like the College World Series. If you make the College World Series, that's huge. Now, you want to win it, but Florida's done that before. Auburn has not, but they're back. And you look at a program like Duke and Houston. Duke's been, 17 times? Shire's been as a player, as an assistant, and as a head coach. But it never gets old winning a national championship or being this close. I can't imagine it ever would. I never get bored with things that I love.
Well, as a coach, you're going to look at – you have the advantage. Both Auburn and Florida have the advantage. They've played each other, right? So they know each other. But also, you want to maybe – I was a big proponent of switching defenses. And what I mean by that is besides man-to-man, I would play some form of zone, either we used a 1-1-3 matchup, or I love the triangle and 2 when I felt like there was no more than 2 shooters on the floor. The problem with Florida is they got a lot of guys that can stroke it. So, you got to be very careful to allow open shots. The thing that, if I'm on the scout, obviously I'm not leaving Walter Clayton Jr., but you mentioned earlier Elijah Martin and Howe. Those guys are dangerous. I mean, they have multiple threats. So the reality is you have to go out and contest with high hands every time those guys are there. And when you do that, you're susceptible to ball fakes, shot fakes, whatever, and penetration and kick. And I think the number one thing you have to do when you play Florida is you've got to be geared up for transition defense, which Auburn will do. Auburn will get back. They will defend the rim. That's number one. Secondly, you have to keep you. Sometimes it's not the first shot that beats you guys; it's the second shot. Okay, so I just think from a strategy standpoint, it goes back to the fundamentals. No second shots, no easy shots, which means get back to transition defense.
Yeah. Brendan, if we can we go to that story? This is a big story, and I want to give credit.
Yeah, let's transition a little bit. It's not me, and I just happened to be online last night when I saw it. So
but you've been talking about this before anybody else was, and it was my concern for sure. It was my concern. Yeah, and sorry to cut you off, but I think it's everyone's concern, and I think the question was asked to AP Mark Long yesterday when he was on ESPN 1010, and we clipped off his comments because Mark Long works for the AP, and in my opinion, the AP is top notch ethically and all that stuff. It's a big
journalism.
Deal. Yeah.
It's a big deal. So when he talks, people listen. We kind of backed it up with some comment. Talked to some people. Buddy's been talking to some people, and it's just talking about Lagway. We didn't say this, Mark Long says that. We're going to play a little bit of the clip where he was on yesterday, that kind of what he's been saying about Lagway and what he thinks is about it. He's pretty close to the team, I think. So we'll just play these, a little bit of this, Rob, and then we'll see. And it's just raw. We just clipped it off. So just give us, here we go.
Hey, all kinds of good things in play for the spring and
practice with their play.
Yeah, hey, I'm going to be honest. DJ Lagway went down, and I haven't been to practice since. Once they ruled out DJ Lagway for the spring, and he's not going to throw. He's standing behind the offense, going through the motions, calling in some plays, doing some of that stuff, but he's not throwing. There's just not a lot for me to go over there. Not a lot of interest, especially with basketball doing what it's doing. I'm paying attention. I go over there and I talk to Billy Napier, so I get where they're at. They've had a lot of injuries in the secondary, so a lot of young guys have shown up and shown out a little bit. Going back to Lagway, he shut down for spring, and the shoulder is an issue. I called it fishy on the 10-10 there. What was that, a month ago?
Yeah, that didn't get any reaction.
No reaction at all. And so I'm a little hesitant. JJ is going to kill me whatever I say. He'll crush it. He'll clip it and put it on social, and I'll get crushed again. But there is cause for concern regarding DJ Lagway. And anybody who doesn't see that, and anybody who's listening to Billy Napier and believing what they hear, I got some swamp land to sell them. Your quarterback is not throwing in spring practice in a developmental period where he's a freshman. This isn't a fifth-year senior we're talking about coming back for one more year. This is a guy who barely started half the season last year and is in a complete developmental, needs reps, needs time, needs all of that, and he's not getting it. He has a shoulder injury. It's enough of a concern that they're not playing him into critical off-season developmental time. That should raise a big red flag for Gator Nation. I have been told that at some point he is going to have or needs to have shoulder surgery. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. I haven't seen an MRI, an X-ray, or anything, but that's what I've been told, that either he has it this year or he has it next year. They don't want him. He doesn't want to have it this year. Nobody wants him to have it this year. But, there's always that concern. It might even be a 2% chance, but it's a chance. I think best case scenario is he heals up, he plays this season, and then he has shoulder surgery like the day after the season ends. Maybe it ends in the CFP, and he has shoulder shortly thereafter to repair what I believe is a high school injury that just has not healed the way it's supposed to heal, or the way they had hoped it would heal. And he played through it last year, played through pain, all kinds of good things. I mean, like everything we love about DJ Lagway, this tells you a little bit more about him. He played through this very painful injury, gutted it out. He's fantastic. You and I love him, Hayes. I'm sure Hacker does too. He's everything for this program, and they're doing right by him by not playing him right now. And fingers crossed that he heals up and he's better and able to play through this thing this fall. But Florida Nation, Gator Nation should be concerned. But I get why the coaching staff and everybody's kind of downplaying it, because you don't want to raise the big red flags or raise alarms, sound off the alarm bells. You want it to be kind of behind the scenes, low key. Let's see how this thing plays out. But I just think everybody should be worried about where this kid goes in the next 3 months.
Yeah. I mean, that is a big story. Gary Harris joins us right now, WVUA Channel 23 sports director there in Tuscaloosa, also Tide 100.9, and does a great show, man, Tuesday nights at 6:30. He and Rodney Orr, Tider Insider, called Tider Insider TV. It's 30 minutes of content, 22 minutes of content, 8 minutes of great commercials from their awesome sponsors. You will learn a lot. And Gary, man, that's a story Brendan has been talking to me about. I know, but now, give Mark Long from AP, and AP has the highest of standards. That's a big story. And we're going to use the F word. We've been talking a lot of basketball, but we're going to use football. We're going to talk some football, but you don't want that happening. I hate to say Gator fans should be worried. Worries the absence of faith, but concerned. But to think that he might even play this upcoming season with an injury would be kind of it'd take a miracle, wouldn't it, Gary? I hope he's okay.
You mean if Lagway can't play for Florida?
Yeah.
No, that's a hit. I mean, it'd be no doubt about it.
Yeah, God, that's everything.
I don't follow Florida daily, but I follow them enough to know that that would change the outlook for their team. So I just caught the tail end of that. I hope he's going to be okay and can play. I mean, I think all SEC fans, you want to beat the other team, but I think most fans in this conference don't want to see great players, be injured, not be able to play, regardless of which team they play for. So, all I can say on this end, not following it that closely, is I hope he's good to go.
Yeah, me too. Gary, it's in Atlanta. Our daughter Mallory, that went to Alabama, watching that Alabama BYU game, she was not happy. And the little one, 2-year-old, she almost said "Go Tigers" the other day, and then she said, "What do we say?" And she said, RTR. So it was pretty funny. But that was awful. You beat BYU 113-88, but then it was Saturday, the Duke game. You live and die by the 3. What's Alabama doing in the portal right now? I know there's a little bit of things happening right now, but and by the way, I saw a great interview Kevin Skarbinski did on this channel with his new podcast, Scarbo Knows. It's on our channel with Wimp Sanderson, and you can't hear enough of that guy. He just he made me feel 22 again. I mean, because that's what I saw in college, man. But he wasn't wearing the plaid jacket. By the way, plaid jacket sales need to come back.
Well, Nate Oates is trying to bring him back. But going back to last weekend in Newark, as you alluded to, Rob, the BYU game, they made 25 threes. They would have won that game even if they made 10 2-point field goals. But even if they didn't make a single 2-point field goal, they would have won that game on 3-pointers and free throws. I mean, it was an unbelievable performance. But I think a lot of people, again, Matt's a coach, but even people that follow the game pretty closely were surprised that BYU didn't try to make some type of an adjustment defensively in the game. They just kept going underneath the screens, and Alabama players just kept surrounding the 3-point line and catching, squaring up, and knocking them down.
Yeah.
I think the BYU approach was, they can't stay this hot, but they did. But every game is unique unto itself, and I think for Alabama it was a really good year. I think coming off the Final Four, you're a 2 seed, so if you just go by the seeding, and this is a year where we can, because all 4 number 1 seeds made it, 3 number 2 seeds made it to the Elite Eight, along with the number 3 seed. So there wasn't a lot of upsets deep into the tournament. But Alabama, as a 2 seed, made it to the Elite Eight. That based on the seeding was the ceiling there, and they ran into a really good Duke team. I've got 3 of the Final Four live. I picked Florida, Duke, Houston, and Michigan State. And, of course, Auburn beat Michigan State, so I was pretty good in the Elite Eight as well. But, I picked Florida to win it all, and I don't regret that. I think Florida's a great team. Having seen that Duke team, if you could change your pick right now, I'd probably change it to Duke. I think that they're everything that they were billed to be. And Cooper Flagg's a generational talent, although, he wasn't probably as prominent in that game as he's been in some other games. Yeah. But for Alabama, I think you have to be honest. I mean, Nate Oates said we want to go to the Final Four, but he also said, most teams in college basketball would have swapped places with Alabama, make it to the Elite Eight. They were 2 seed, didn't win the SEC regular season, didn't win the SEC tournament, didn't go to the Final Four. But again, maybe I live in a different world than most fans or sportscasters, but I refuse to be disappointed when you make the Elite Eight. I mean, if you make the Elite Eight of the NCAA tournament, that's got to be considered a success to me. So as far as the portal, they're bringing in the big 7-foot center from Bucknell, already. So they're going to do what every other team is going to do. They're going to look at what's available in the portal. They got 3 high school signees coming in. I'm sure they're going to lose. Already lost 1 player to the portal. I'm sure, you evaluate the portal, what you have leaving versus what you're trying to bring in. Yeah. I'll just say this and let you guys join. This is just my opinion. I mean, based on what I've seen from Nate Oates, doesn't mean you're going to go to the Final Four every year, obviously. But I do think eventually if he stays here, he'll win a national championship. And I think as long as he's the head coach, and I've said this before, I think he's a perfect coach for the modern game. He doesn't dread the portal. The style that he plays, kids want to play in it. He is uniquely qualified to deal with roster management from year to year, because that's what you're doing. Your roster is rolling over every year. And I think as long as he's at Alabama, they're going to have a top 5, maybe a top 10 at worst roster in college basketball. Yeah. And if you've got a top 5 or 10 roster every year, you're going to be positioned to go deep in the NCAA tournament. So I just think that's where Alabama's at right now.
Can't argue with that. Coach Matt Dean, pick up. That's good.
Hey, Gary, I was actually on the plane coming back from Minneapolis, so I missed the game. And I think you answered my question, because when I came into this tournament, I really thought Duke would get to the Final Four, but I thought either the SEC teams or a Houston team would beat them in the Final Four. After what you just saw, tell me about your thoughts on Duke Houston, because Houston obviously is very physical, have a great defensive game plan, and they shoot the ball well from the perimeter, which is a change from some of their prior teams. What are your thoughts on Duke and Houston?
Well, that's the great thing about the tournament is you see every form of basketball played, from one extreme, Alabama, that's going to try to score as many points as they can, to Houston, which is just going to, although like you said, they shoot it a lot better from the perimeter, and I think that's why they're back in the Final Four. But Houston still, man, the grit, the toughness, just almost and Alabama beat them this year, and Alabama's played every team in the Final Four, by the way, which is kind of unique. But Houston is so just committed and dedicated to the way that they play that it's hard to separate from them. I mean, even though they don't score a ton of points, it's hard to get a big lead against that team. They're good enough offensively, and the way that they guard you, every inbounds pass, every time up the court, half court, full court. I mean, they're just in your grill. But I'll say this, and I like Houston a lot. Kelvin Sampson's an all-time great coach. Yeah, I think over the course of 40 minutes, in my opinion, that Duke will Duke just has too many options. And I just think that I picked Florida to win it all. And, obviously you can't discount any of these teams. They're all number 1 seeds. Yeah. That's what's amazing. For the second time ever, we got all number 1 seeds in the tournament. But for, right now, today, and we'll see how the games play out, if you reseeded and said, now with this Final Four, who would you pick? I would pick Duke. I mean, I just I saw enough of them and what they were able to do to Alabama. Again, everybody says, well, Alabama didn't shoot it well. And Alabama, well, Yeah, because they played a team that made it tough for them to shoot it well.
Yeah,
you know, I mean,
it wasn't that they intentionally
right. You know,
well.
it wasn't like they didn't want to play well. I mean,
give credit to Duke. Yeah,
deeper you go in this tournament, but I saw Duke do some things to Alabama this year, or do some things to Alabama that nobody else has been able to do this year, and that was, I thought, just really take them completely out of their game. And you could see the uncertainty. You could see, I don't want to call it tension, but you know, the confidence, the game before, you felt like even when it didn't go in, when it left their hand, it was going in. And against Duke, you felt like when it left their hand, it wasn't going in. So I think Duke will win that game. The other SEC matchup, boy, I tell you, that's going to be a heck of a game too. But I think I'll get the national championship game that I predicted in my bracket, which is Duke and Florida. I'm just going to make a reverse pivot though, and I'm going to pick Duke to win it all. That's what I think of Duke. And maybe it's it's recency bias and the fact that I just saw what they were able to do to Alabama. But I think right now Duke's the best team in the country. Well,
here's an interesting thing. Auburn has played the other three teams. They're 1-2 against them. Played at Duke and beat Houston out there early in the season and not on campus, but at their arena. And lost at home to Florida. Auburn's a different team. Florida's a different team in the last 2 months. But Gary, it is hard to go against Duke the way they're playing. John Shire is a damn good coach. He played at Duke, assistant coach, and
good player. And I tell you what, for a young guy, he's to follow Coach K. Yeah, and we've seen it here at Alabama. We try to follow Coach Bryant, or now in this case, Coach Saban, but he's just stepped right in, and that Duke team is loaded.
Yeah, they really are, and I love that breakdown. And Matt, when you start looking, Auburn ain't going to back down. I mean, they'll be ready to play Florida. I mean, they've had to hear for the last 2 months how bad Florida beat them. I think they're a little tired of it. Give Florida credit. That's what you got to be careful of. And what you got to be careful of if your Auburn is saying, well, we already beat Houston earlier in the season, that doesn't mean a damn thing. Like Coach Sanderson said on that podcast, he goes, well, it means you got some film. He said tape on them. But, hey, Auburn played Duke earlier in the season. They lost to him at Cameron Indoor. They better not be thinking, man, we lost to him before, we can't beat them. So all that stuff goes out the window.
Yeah, this is a different. But Matt needs to chime in because he's the basketball guy.
Yeah, I want you to chime in. It's amnesty day.
You said Auburn won't back down. That's a great thing about this. Once you get to the Final Four, nobody's backing down.
Nobody.
Particularly with 4 number 1 seeds. Every one of these teams believe they're going to win the national championship, and rightfully so. Yeah. I mean, they've earned their way here. They were number 1 seeds. They went through a regional and won a regional championship, so they're already champions. So that's the great thing about this Final Four. You don't have a single team that's going in there thinking, if we don't, we got to do this or we got to change something. All 4 of these teams, what all 4 of these coaches are saying, in my opinion, Matt, you're the coach. They're saying, listen, we play our game, we're winning it.
Yeah, that's right. And
we just got to be who we are. We're going to win the championship.
Because Bruce Pearl loves Todd Golden. And I think it's not real fun to coach against someone that you care that much about. And so what I'm saying is it's amnesty day. Basically, you're getting a wash, and you're starting all over. These teams, there's some familiarity, Matt, but you still got to play these games. But Matt's right. None of them are lacking confidence, Coach.
Well, let me just give you an analogy. I believe the last time we had 4 number 1s, it was 2008, and our Memphis Tigers were there, Rob.
I remember that like it was yesterday.
Let me just say something. Here's the difference. Gary's right. Every one of these teams can win it. They believe it.
Yeah.
But in 2008, everybody thought Derrick Rose and the Tigers were going to win the whole thing. And with 3 minutes to go, they were up 9 points against Kansas. We did too.
2 minutes.
Whatever. They had a great chance. So I think the difference this time is you can make an argument for any one of these 4 teams. And that's why I mentioned Duke, because I question a little bit of their path, but what they did to Alabama in the Elite 8, that changed the whole thing for me. Okay? Yeah. And Gary's right. If Alabama doesn't go 8 of 32 from 3, that game could have been different. Another thing I want to mention about Houston quickly, guys, is I thought their ball screen defense was exceptional against Tennessee. And I know Tennessee's no juggernaut, but Zakai Ziegler's been playing there for a long time. They made him insignificant on the monster double of the ball screen. I know Zakai's a smaller guard, but I think Houston will give Duke everything they got defensively. I'm just not sure if they get by Duke if they could match up with Florida's length if Florida beats Auburn. That's just my opinion. But I think this is really one of the best Final Fours we've ever seen in terms of any one of these 4 teams can win it.
Buddy, chime in here real quick. You've been hearing. Buddy's like the judge. He's been sitting here listening to us, and here comes the judge. Here you go. Come on, Coach.
I'm enjoying the conversation. I agree with what Gary said and Matt and the fans said. Look, I mean, it's only happened one time where I've had all 4 Final Four teams in my brackets. I'm a bracket disaster, okay? Anybody can beat me, but there was such great chalk.
Yeah.
And I do believe that we all think we know a little something extra about the teams we follow.
Yeah.
Because we follow them, we also can make a case, and I can see any one of those 4 teams winning. I, of course, follow Florida closer, and that's why I have, I think I have some insight. I just go to one thing on this, and I'll defer to you guys on it. When you got 10 guys you can play, when you play actively 9, even 8 or 9 now, I'm not talking about just a couple of minutes. You can throw them on the floor at any time, in any situation. You just don't see depth like that anywhere in sports. These guys are massively talented. All the bigs can handle and pass and shoot, and they run the floor like a bunch of gazelles. They have 5 guards, not 3, 5 guards, 3 that are world class. Probably nobody got better guards than Florida. That's the end point. It's a question: can they shoot the rock? And and if you play really great defense, it's been proven that sometimes you can't. Unless they don't shoot well, I think Florida will win this. If you look at what we've seen, forget all the quad 1 stuff and all that crap that people make up to justify what they say. It's head-to-head. Who beats who? Who's better? And the team I've seen, Florida, except for a couple of cases, Florida's been the best team against the best team, and it took them forever to even get a number 1 seed.
Yeah,
so I do think they will play well. I think it's going to be a heck of a game with Auburn. You're right about Pearl, his son Steven, especially good friends with Todd.
Yeah,
but it's the Tiffany series. It's the Golden versus the Pearl.
Yeah, I didn't thought about that.
Hey, Gary, and that's the thing about it. Coach John Brady said back in early November on this show, he said, watch Florida. He goes, they can rebound. And that's something that jumped out. And what you just said about Nate Oates and watching Wimps Anderson with Scarborough yesterday, a couple of days ago, that was so cool.
Well, that was really a good interview. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. And Matt, you get to talk to him, Gary, every week. I mean, I love the guy. I felt 40 years younger listening to him. I mean, he's just
he's still
cool.
mentally, he's still sharp as a tack.
Oh, hell
like
yeah.
Said, he can break it down. One other thing on Florida, and I'm not saying it was easy for the other teams, but the other 3 teams, Florida, faced real adversity. I mean, UConn, heart of a champion, 3 or 4 minutes to go in that game. It looked like they might lose it. Then against Texas Tech, let's be honest. I mean, if you're a Texas Tech fan, you're saying, my gosh, well, that's one of those games you'll talk about. You'll regret that one. You'll be talking about that one 20 years. We had Florida beaten. So they've come through. They've played a couple of games that the other teams, for the most part, have not had to play, Matt. And I wonder, again, every game is individual to itself, and you're in the Final Four, so you have 4 great teams. But they've got that mental toughness, I think, to fall back on it. Hey, if it's, you look up in the national semifinal, national championship game, and it's tied with a minute to go, I think Florida says, well, we got this. Yeah. And the other teams may be like, okay, how do we deal with this? I mean, is there anything to that?
There is. Confidence matters. And you look at those 2 games we referenced earlier, the UConn game and the Texas Tech game. Florida's in the spot now. We're getting to Buddy's point. They have the deepest roster left, and they have, I think, the best player to me, Walter Clayton Jr., I'm a Chicago Bulls fan. I want him right now more than any other guy in the draft whenever he comes out. I want Walter Clayton Jr. because I think he's Dame Lillard. That's just my opinion. I think he's one of the finest guards I've seen in college basketball the last 20 years. And a lot of it is he's not afraid to make and take big shots. You look at the UConn game, he hit a huge 3 to tie it up. It may have been twice, buddy. And then what he did against Texas Tech and also his teammates was quite impressive. And I know it seems like we're underselling Auburn here, Rob, because they've been so great this year. I just think we get a national championship game in the semis, which is kind of unfortunate. I wish they were on both sides of the bracket because I'd like to see them play for the national championship. I'd like to see Houston, Florida in the semis and Duke and Auburn the other way. I'd love to see them in the finals. Obviously, it's not going to happen because we don't reseed, but that's just me.
Well, and you know what? In my position, we're talking about all 16 schools. We do an Auburn show. We got Gator Bait, Buddy Martin show tonight. I just call it like I see it, and I'm always going to be fair. And so is Gary. I tell you, Gary and I text a lot, and Gary, appreciate we lost him, but come back. Hey, but let me say something about Landers Ford, folks. Old Glory, the American flag, they had to take it down for a few days with all these storms. She'll be back up in a few days. Don't you worry. They're as red-blooded as it gets. Open every day but Sunday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Great opportunities to save big. You heard Brad Bellamy, the general manager, on Tuesday. Tariffs, whatever they are, they're not going to raise prices and gouge you. They're going to be, like they've always been, reasonable and great to work with. Landers Ford, where Memphis meets Collierville. Great opportunities. Ford trucks, SUVs, cars. The 25 expeditions are about to roll out. And I got to say something, too. I want to say, buddy, Gator George out in Portland. I love this guy. I mean, he's sitting there saying, hey, I hope everybody's okay in Memphis. Gets up in Portland, Oregon to watch all of us. I mean, I appreciate that. And I appreciate
thrills, obviously.
But he's going, I hope everybody's okay in Memphis. And George, thank you, man. Yes, they are. A lot of people don't have power. My youngest one said it's been out since 3:30 yesterday. Storms, just everybody pay attention. Gary, you know better than anybody. You'll never forget April 27th of 2011 in Tuscaloosa. And that is a wild time. Gary, and I will say this too, obviously I'm a host of this show. Yeah, Auburn, hope they win. If they don't, it's Florida. I'm an SEC guy 110%. I am so SEC because what rivalries are you going to have if you're a rival? If you're, Florida, and do you want Georgia to be 1-8 when you play them? If you're Auburn, do you want Alabama to be 3-8? No, you want to beat them when they're undefeated. You said something earlier about playing teams with their healthy players, their best players, talking about Lagway. Before you go, tell us what you're going to talk about on your awesome show you do every day and kind of what you think is going to happen. And we'll get into some football next week, a lot of football, I promise.
Yeah, well, thinking
love
about,
having you on.
The SEC, I think going into the Elite Eight, we were all kind of holding out hope that it'd be an all Final Four from the SEC.
Hell yeah.
The 2 1 seeds and 2 seeds alive, but the 2 seeds didn't make it. But today I'm going to be talking Kieran Johns, stats and analysis for ESPN, former head coach at Florida, former head coach at Virginia. She's our softball analyst, so Alabama softball. We'll be discussing that with her. We are going to talk some spring football as Alabama is now just 9 days away from their 8A practice. It's no longer an 8A game. They've got a scrimmage tomorrow, and I got Jeff Spiegel on from ABC 33 and 40 in Birmingham. But we'll hit, and then Rob Vaughn comes on with me tomorrow. Alabama, real quickly, I mentioned this, is at Auburn in baseball, and that's flying under the radar a little bit because Auburn's in the Final Four, obviously. The huge baseball series coming up this weekend down on the plains. So I'll get into that, and then I have Coach Vaughn on tomorrow morning. He'll join me live from down at Auburn. Hey, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
You bet, Gary. Love having you on. Appreciate it. Matt, like what Buddy's saying, and Gary, and this has been a great conversation. You look at a team that can rebound. I call Florida sort of a throwback team. I mean, not that they're playing with their back, but it's just, to me, incredible watching these teams develop as the season goes on. And Buddy's a great writer. So I think the coolest story, if I'm a Florida fan, is Micah Hanlockton giving up that red shirt because he loves his team so much. That love, as Ivan Mazel said on this show one time, who's a great writer, Buddy, you know him, you know who he is. He said, in the past, the kids, we cheered for them because they loved the laundry. Micah Hanlockton is a story that everybody in college sports should be paying attention to. Buddy knows it. Matt, you know it. I think when he did what he did, Florida's won 17 of the last 18 games. And I'm with Buddy. I don't understand. Well, I do understand. There's just bias. There's a narrative of certain teams that the national press, wants to get someplace, and Florida didn't fit it. But we're all down here, at least on this show, going, I mean, I didn't pick them to win the national championship because I like Buddy and Brendan. I picked it because that's who I think's the best team. Matt, you're a coach.
Well, they proved it. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Games are all, I mean, outcomes are on the floor. And you think of the adversity they've had during the season. You think of some of the adversity their coach went through during the season. Florida is battle tested. And that's why I think it's such a great story is their path has been the most challenging. Because let's not forget, Arkansas had Texas Tech beat. That was a 16-3 run Texas Tech used to get to the overtime, and they beat a really good Arkansas team, and Arkansas was going to be in that lead game with Florida. I'm not saying that Arkansas would have beat them, but, I mean, Florida is battle-tested. They're the deepest team in remaining in the field. They can rebound. They can offensive rebound. They can shoot from the perimeter. They have everything you want, and they're really well coached. And the inside story with the connection with the other head coach and Coach Pearl. I think it's just – I can't wait. And, you know, honestly, this is one of these Final Fours you rarely see. And I was with Buddy. I had chalk in my Final Four too, but now that we have it, legitimately any one of these teams can make a case. Because I'll tell you, you know, we're talking about rebounding. I'll tell you who rebounds is Houston. And they do something that's really unique. They tip the ball out a lot. And sometimes you're not taught to do that. You're taught to go up with two hands and grab the basketball. Houston tips it out a lot on the offensive rebound. And they have, honestly, if you're going to rank the toughness of the head coach that's left, it's Kelvin Sampson. They have a tough dude leading that crew. And those guys, I saw a picture with them post-game with their shirts off. They like the weight room too.
Yeah. There's something out there on social media right now showing the Houston players in the weight room, buddy. I mean, they're look, we all remember Guy Lewis and that checkered towel that he used to, you know, chew on. Remember him with Phi Slamma Jamma? And Buddy was at that Final Four in Albuquerque. Buddy, again, you're like the judge. That's your nickname, is the judge, because I watch how you listen and you're processing all this stuff. There's so many storylines. And if I put you on a 30-minute deadline, or 1 hour deadline to write a story going into San Antonio, what would the lead be or the bump?
Depends on who you're writing, what audience you're writing for, obviously. Yeah. The story on Florida is, of course, trying to win. This is the sixth time they're back at it. And so much symmetry there with the Billy Donovan situation. There's supposedly, I can't say for sure, Billy has talked to Napier recently. Always good to get that legacy. I want to say this is really one of the top 10 stories I've covered, this basketball team, because they're, number one, so much fun to watch play. Yeah. At a time where we're all complaining about, you know, all the problems we got in sports and college sports. Correct. The joy with which they play the game and the unselfish nature of this team and the way they have rallied together and they play, and any one of those guys can win the game. Like there's been some plays like I think Elijah Martin's rebound the other day was huge on the missed free throw, a hustle play. You look at Chimilu's rebound when he had to have it, he got it. The effort plays seem to inspire others around them. I like the inspiration that they give. They're fun. Now, look, let's don't just make no mistake. Auburn's a talented basketball team, all right? And Bruce Pearl has done a fabulous job. And I don't know who's going to win it. For me, it would be the story of bringing back the joy to the game again.
Yeah.
That we seem to, like, we complain we've lost with NIL and all the other stuff. Through all of this, here's this wonderful Final Four with a team that cares, a team that plays hard, plays well, and it's just still not even plays its best game. So it's an exciting time, an exciting Final Four. And look, I think you asked me the other day how many times I've been to the Final Four. I think 7 or 8. I can't remember. Yeah. But I know one thing. The Saturday of the Final Four, with the 4 teams playing and all the bands there and all the color and the drama. Yeah. It's everything that you want on a campus. And I see Brendan's comments here. I've not heard this story.
Exactly. That's a big story.
Game day not going back to campus as being studio only.
Yeah.
What a mistake.
What a mistake.
What a mistake, because you had captured the flavor like no place else. I think they'll live to regret that one. One of the things they said about these new playoffs they like so much and with the top 12 team is that some games will be on campus. All of a sudden, this is getting away. We're getting away from things that we know are good. And when you start, I go back to the story that I wrote this morning about Florida, Auburn, I'll be playing the football. And they don't. They haven't played. That last time they played in 2019. You know this series. You guys know Florida, Auburn. Spurrier was back in the day kicking field goals and winning Heisman's against them. It's a great series. They played 58 straight years. Now it's gone because somehow or another nobody thought it was worth preserving.
Yeah.
I'm a preservationist at heart. I love the core of college sports. I think it's a bit of a throwback, as you said, to this team. I think it's going to be a fantastic weekend. I stick with my pick, Florida.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I love about you. First time we had you on, September 11th, 2011, you and Brendan driving. This is the way the old Gators drive.
You remember that date?
I still remember, because it was a big ass deal. Because Lauren gave me your number.
Boy, sick, man. I don't know. I can't remember what happened for breakfast.
Matt, I know you got to go, but that was pretty damn. That was a home run.
Well, last thing I'll say, buddy, it's one thing you said resonates with me. I was fortunate to go to about 12, 13, or 14 Final Fours when I was coaching on the men's side. I can't remember. But the environment on Saturday, when everybody thinks they have a shot and you get to the main hotel where the coaches are and you see the teams come out, there's nothing like it. If you've never been to a Final Four, and if your team's playing in a Final Four, you got to get there, because it's the greatest atmosphere, I think, in all of sports. And I really believe that. So I got to roll, guys, but it's always a pleasure. It's great to see you, buddy. And Rob, we'll do it next week, sir.
Man, awesome stuff. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Buddy, I'll tell you this story. Saturday Down South is reporting that. But I've been saying on this show for several years that I'm predicting Apple or X or someone's going to buy ESPN, maybe even Fox. Brendan putting out a lot of information there. Possibility Disneyland may close up. But we know ESPN's been losing money. They go back not too many years ago, they had over 100 million subscribers. Now they're down around 70. Now, on the flip side, there's probably those 30 million or so are ESPN Plus subscribers. But that's not as much money. But I'm with you, buddy, to not go on campus. That was the whole – that's all. There is no game day if it's in a studio. I talked to a friend of mine's son who works at ESPN last week and had a great conversation with him. He's a young man, went to an SEC school. And, you know, it's a different environment up there, buddy, but people want to be on campus. And I agree with you. The story is how much you look at these Auburn guys, the Duke, the Houston, Florida, they seem to love playing the game. They love playing for their school. Again, I don't know Micah Hanlockton, but I damn sure like to talk to that kid. You get to, but he's so unselfish. He could have said, no, I'm not doing it. That's the stories that we need to be paying attention to.
Sorry, I'm going to have to run here, guys. My breakfast is ready. Okay. I'm going to go eat it. But I'm going to say this. They didn't ask me to come on here, and I just want to say this real fast. The story about DJ Lagway that's hanging out there again.
What do you think?
Guy who originally kind of broke it 30 days ago, Mark Long of the AP, came back on the station yesterday and doubled down on his comments. Brendan wisely saw that last night. We put it on my show, and I thought it was an old comment. He did say basically that Lagway is injured, that he's being held out because he's going to have surgery at some point, if not now, after the season, et cetera, et cetera. And this is very disconcerting to Florida, who, by the way, has some fantastic new receivers. They are so pumped about their new receivers. But let me just say this. Since that time, I have also called my friend, Dr. Pete Delicato, a former team physician, to explain to me what he could about the Lagway situation. And this is what I'm writing this weekend. I have not broken. He said this. He didn't sound all that alarmed about it. And he said they put the leading experts in the world on this a couple of months ago and said, what do you need to do here? He said he's in an extensive rehab program, and they're rebuilding the muscles in his arm over a period of time. These guys are all like world leaders and stuff. And he says it's something that can be addressed through physical therapy. He said now there's always a possibility, like in baseball, when you injure your arm. But he feels pretty confident, even though Lagway is not throwing, that he'll be okay and be able to play this fall. So that's the other side of the story. But Brendan's right. There's always a learn. There's always something to be learned about an injury. We don't know. I don't know. I put it out there, and I'm done. I'm going to have some bacon and eggs.
You lucky son. I'm hungry. I didn't even eat yet. All right, buddy. Great to break that down. No rumors. That's actual fact. Oh my God, you're an actual journalist. You went and checked with sources. You confirmed things. Trust but verify. You're not going to get this kind of truth anywhere else. I can tell you that. This channel, SEC Sideline Sports Network, executive producer Brendan Martin, it's what makes it so great. Buddy, thank you, man, so much for coming on with us.
I'll be on tonight at 9:00 with all the guys, including Ben Troop and Branch Beard, and we'll talk more about this.
And we're going to get into the F word next week, talk some football and baseball and basketball. But anyway, thank you, man. Brendan, right. Let me say this about Hewlett and Dunn Boot & Clothing Company. Get out on the square today. It's right down the street from Landers Ford, Memphis.com. Hewlett and Dunn, they got over 7,000 pairs of men's and women's boots. Great selection of clothing for men, ladies, and they got kids' toys too, kids' boots, hats, unbelievable selection of hats. It's raining right now. Now, Brendan, you might agree or disagree. Audrey says it's not a raincoat if it doesn't have a hood. Well, they've got them with hoods and without hoods. Barber, Filson, Pendleton, Schaefer, Duckhead, all the great brands. And check out the Devil Dog jeans. Great looking jeans. They've got the half boots, the full boots, all the Danner boots. Our listeners from coast to coast and around the world, thank you so much for making this show grow like it is. We got the best executive producer on the planet. Follow the process. We're making it happen. Watch Scarbo Knows today on this channel. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Go out and make something great happen. See you tomorrow.